In this video, we're going to talk about some of the advanced features with the Palo Alto, specifically WildFire, what WildFire is and how it works for us. Data filtering, how it could protect our environment for our potentially PII or other types of information in our environments. And then ultimately DoS profiles, how they are similar to and different than our zone protection profiles. So we start off talking about WildFire. Now, in a previous video, we talked about how we had antivirus in our environment and how the antivirus policies were able to look at our files that are being downloaded on our network, scan them for possible viruses, and then either allow or reject them. Along with that, we also had file blocking policies that allowed us to permit or deny files based on the file type. WildFire steps in here for other zero-day types of attacks. And what that means is if I'm an attacker, if I'm a hacker and I want to break into a network, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a virus. I'm going to find something that the virus scanners already know about. And I'm going to tweak that a little bit. I'm going to modify it a little bit so that the scanners don't see it anymore. I'm going to keep updating it over and over and tweaking little bits here and there so that the signature is no longer identified by the antivirus. At that point, that is then considered a zero-day attack. There's no signature for it. There's no way for an antivirus scanner to be able to say, yes, I know what you are. I'm not going to let you in. So once I've done that, pretty much the only way to be able to find it is to find that zero-day attack is to load up that file and scan it and run it in an application and see what it actually does. And that's exactly what WildFire does. When the Palo Alto receives a firewall, it says, hey, do I know who this is? Is this signed by Microsoft or is this signed by just some general Joe Smith? If I know who it is, if it's a company I deal with a lot and I trust, then go ahead and allow the file to go through. Otherwise, I'll perform a hash on it so I'm not dealing with the full file altogether. And I say, have I seen this before? Do I know if this is good or bad? If not, what I do is I send it up to WildFire, which does an online sandbox environment. That sandbox environment is out there on the cloud, provided by Palo Alto. It opens up the file. It runs the file. Say it's a PDF of some sort. It will open up the PDF file and let it sit in the sandbox for hours, possibly real hours, possibly synthetic hours. And it sits there and it tries to open it and runs through different things. And it looks to see if anything weird happens in that sandbox. If nothing weird happens in that sandbox, then it gets a verdict right here, which is either, yes, this is benign, this is a good file, it's not bad. Or it's grayware, it's not necessarily good, but it's not necessarily bad either. We're kind of on the fence there of it being good or bad. Or maybe it's done something bad, and so they identify that as either phishing or malware. And so that's what WildFire does, is it keeps track of all of these files that are brand new to your environment that it doesn't know about previously. And it does this for web browsing as well as email and FTP and other types of traffic, both in and out. Now, the cool thing about this is because this goes up to the WildFire cloud, not just you, but everybody else who uses WildFire can benefit from it. So if I get a file from a hacker, but somebody else has already received it an hour ahead of time and identified it as bad, by the time it gets to me, the firewall is able to block it immediately. In fact, once it's already up into the cloud, the WildFire database gets updated up to, or possibly up to, every 15 minutes. So if some other company has found this vulnerability and reported it, then 15 minutes later, in theory, I'm getting an updated database and I'm blocking it before it gets into my environment, just like I would with the antivirus. Now, WildFire still helps me even if I don't have the WildFire license. Maybe I only have the AV license. Well, about once a day, that the WildFire updates get rolled into the antivirus updates, and so I still get some benefits of it, even if it's not as immediate as if I had WildFire itself. Setting up WildFire is actually really, really simple and probably fairly similar to what you've been seeing previously. In order to set up WildFire, what we do is we go into, let's see, in our firewall, we go to Objects. And then on the left-hand side, under the security profiles, we have WildFire Analysis. Now, actually, before we do this, this is a licensed feature. We do have to make sure we have it. So if we go to Device, Licenses, we'll see down here on the right-hand side our WildFire license. And we can see, yes, it does in fact have a still valid license, which allows me to get the signature feed, the logs, and the API. So with that being said, I go over to Objects, WildFire Analysis. There is a default rule. We can look at it. Basically, it looks at any application. Actually, let me clone this. We'll call this Internet. There's a default rule here. It looks at any application. So we can look at specific applications such as, any of these applications we can specifically add or remove in our list. And then file types. So we can specify what types of files, whether it's EXEs, PDFs, scripts, or just all. Direction. Do we care about people uploading files or downloading or both? And then lastly, analysis. Do we want to analyze this on the public cloud provided by Palo Alto, or is our data private and need to stay secure, in which case we can set up our own private WildFire analysis cloud. So once that's done, we just go ahead and say, okay, at this point, we really just apply this to our network settings or to our network policy. In this case, I actually have a security profile group. So I'll go edit my security profile group for the default internet. WildFire, I will now add my internet policy, say OK, and commit. At that point, WildFire is starting to kick off. Every time I browse a file, it will go through this whole process here of seeing if it's already been evaluated. If not, send it up to Palo Alto for evaluation. By the way, these WildFire signatures can actually be updated on a regular basis. I believe that's under Device, Dynamic Updates. We'll see the WildFire updates right here. It was last checked a couple of days ago. What we can do is we can automatically schedule for these guys to be downloaded every minute. Apparently every minute. To go ahead and download and automatically install the latest and greatest WildFire updates. I'm actually going to change that to every 15 minutes, actually every hour, simply because this is a lab environment and I don't want to overwhelm Palo Alto. So there you go. Every hour, 12 minutes past the hour there, it's going to download and install the latest updates. So that is WildFire. The next item is data protection. And data protection is where we can start talking about data that we need to protect. The easiest ones to look at for this might be like this right here, social security number. Do we want these social security numbers possibly leaving our company? Or credit card numbers. Do we want these credit card numbers leaving our company? Probably not. So we can set up a data protection or data filtering policy in order to block that from happening. In order to do that, we come back to exactly where we just were under Objects. And we can see under our security profiles, we have a data filtering profile. There's currently none, so let's go ahead and add a new one. Let's go ahead and call this one, well, because I'm really boring, let's call this one Internet. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a new data pattern. We'll call this one, I don't know, credit cards. How about just CC? There we go. New. That's what I need. New data pattern. Okay, we'll call this one credit cards. And what we can do is we can look for various patterns based on the file properties, various predefined patterns that Palo Alto already has for us, or some regular expressions. If you've never looked into regular expressions, it's an amazing technology that allows you to search for and filter on basically anything. In this case, I'm going to choose predefined pattern and then say add to add a specific pattern. And I'm saying that because there is a credit card pattern. Imagine that. In this case, it will look through any file type, whether it's HTML or an Office document. It will look through any of them to look for credit card numbers that were in, as it says, in the US. Say OK. And let's see. Look through any application of any file type, both up and down. It will alert at any attempt. Actually, let's put that at 1. So it will alert at 1 and then go ahead and block at 1. And so any credit cards that are attempted to go up or down from the internet will be blocked. At this point, I can go ahead and update my security profile group, add in my data filtering profile for internet, say OK, and commit. And now any type of credit card data that's being sent through my firewall, whether that's accidental, by somebody accidentally emailing in a list of emails or a list of credit card numbers, or even intentional, such as me going up to Amazon and buying something online, that will get alerted and blocked by the Palo Alto firewall. If you're wondering, no, I'm not going to try that for you right now. Yeah, find your credit card numbers somewhere else. All right, so the third option we have here is for DoS profiles. Now, we'd previously talked about zone protection profiles, where we were able to there we go. Where we were able to identify a specific zone that we wanted to secure and then protect that one zone. DoS profiles are essentially the same thing, but it gives us more granularity. So for instance, if we go into our Palo Alto once again, under objects, we then have our DoS protection. And we can go ahead and we can create a very simple zone or a protection profile right here. I'm going to call this one actually Internet to Private. And at this point, these options are going to look very, very similar to what we saw with the zone protection profile. Say OK there. Unlike the other items that we were configuring here with our security profiles, when we look at the security profile group, there is no option for DoS protection. None of these guys are allowed for DoS protection. So we have to actually configure that in a slightly different location. What we do is we go up to Policies, and then on the left-hand side here, we have DoS protection. And here is where we actually apply that. Internet to Private. The source, we define our zone as the internet, public. And then destination, we define that as our private. And then the protection, we can add in, let's see, right here, our aggregate of internet to private. So this is very similar to the zone protection profile, but it gives us a little bit more granularity of saying from the internet to private, I want to be possibly more secure than my internet to DMZ, or from my private to DMZ, or private to internet, or whatever other zones I might have in my environment. Okay, and commit. And there we have it. We've gone ahead and we've set up our WildFire profile that scans for vulnerabilities before we even know about them. Data filtering that helps protect our data from protect our data from possibly being leaked out of our organization. And then our DoS profiles, which are very similar to our zone profiles, but allow for a little bit more granularity about what's being controlled depending on its destination.